Welcome to this episode of Out of Bounds. I'm John Luck alongside Mary Evers. We're here to talk about Super Bowl 54 coming up this Sunday in Miami between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers.
Are you sure you got that right?
I was unsure. I was unsure. I had to check the old channel guide there, but It turns out the Patriots aren't in their invitational this year.
That's weird.
But oddly enough, the backup quarterback for the Patriots from a few years ago is. We're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo returning after suffering a torn ACL. And so far this season, he's been responsible partly for one of the biggest turnarounds in NFL history, the third team in NFL history to win less than 4 games and make the Super Bowl the very next year, the 99 St. Louis Rams and the 88 Cincinnati Bengals, the other two franchises. So let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo here, the former backup of Tom Brady, now looking to join the ranks of Tom Brady as Super Bowl winning starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I think clearly Jimmy Garoppolo was a huge factor in that because last year they didn't have Jimmy Garoppolo because he was out with a torn ACL. So he clearly injected a kind of a big power into this offense all year, though the running game has also been really good for them all year. And kind of overall, the 49ers have been a very complete team, and I think that has a lot to do with Jimmy Garoppolo because he might be technically a new starting quarterback for the most part, but he learned from Tom Brady at least somewhat clearly because he's become a great game manager and has become a leader in that locker room, which is something that every team needs.
So looking at some of the stats for Jimmy Garoppolo here as far as what he's done just in a few games here. In his first 25 starts, he's 20-5 as a starting quarterback. He's a third quarterback to get to that point. Ben Roethlisberger, Dan Marino, the other two to get to 20 wins in their first 25 starts. And Jimmy Garoppolo, 27 touchdown passes, which is 5th in the NFL this season. So he's really putting himself up there as far as the top quarterbacks in the NFC, which to me, that's a surprise. I thought Garoppolo was going to improve, but I didn't think he'd improve this much. And it speaks to the weapons that he has around him. George Kittle, Emmanuel Sanders, who they traded for, Deebo Samuel.
Right, and I think it's funny because Emmanuel Sanders was one of the names that was connected with the Patriots near the trade deadline, but the Niners eventually ended up going after him, and the Patriots got Mohamed Sanu, which kind of turned out to be a breaker for the Patriots because Mohamed Sanu did not do a lot. But Emmanuel Sanders was an added positive to an already kind of big arsenal of weapons for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't know if he would have had this level of success without all of these players around him, but it certainly makes him look good going forward.
So when we talk about Sanders, I think the one thing that maybe separates him from Sanu, besides the talent standpoint, because he was more talented this season than Sanu, Sanders was that receiver that Garoppolo could connect with in stride. Tom Brady, he's the quarterback now. I mean, he's 42, 43 years old. He can throw the ball 10 or 15 yards down the field. But Sanders, if this was 2008, 2009, I think that would be a bigger pickup for the Patriots. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about one of the things Garoppolo said during media night, and I'm talking about Nick Bosa, a stalwart on the 49ers defense. Quote, "Things have a way of working out. I always told myself it was a blessing in disguise, the ACL, talking about the one that he tore. We got Nick Bosa out of it. That's a pretty good trade-off, I guess. But yeah, things have a way of working out. This ride is crazy." And a lot of people forget the fact that Garoppolo tore his ACL early in the season last year. Right. And because of that, I don't know if it's unintentionally or not, but they were a top 3 draft pick. So maybe these things kind of have a way of working out, and it certainly worked out the 49ers defense.
Right, and I think it's the way he's looking at it with such kind of positivity, I think that kind of shows the kind of Brady-esque version of him, because Tom Brady's one of those guys who will go to the media and kind of try to put a positive spin about everything that happens. And it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo is doing that too, because obviously tearing your ACL is a huge injury, and it's hard to come back from, and you don't always see people come back from it the next season that the next season that they're returning. Sometimes it's kind of like a lagging when it comes to getting themselves back in the game. But he just kind of ran with it, did all the things he needed to do to get himself back to full strength, and it's worked out for him. So calling it a blessing in disguise is, I think, really accurate for him.
So we go from the starting quarterback to the defense. Now we focus on the running game, and obviously the 49ers running game was a big reason why they won against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. Tevin Coleman was injured. He may come back for the Super Bowl, but obviously the story was a play of Raheem Mostert, who The 2019 regular season, 8 touchdowns, 772 rushing yards. Against the Packers, he set the San Francisco record for rushing yards, regular season or postseason, in a single game with 220, and that was second most in a postseason game in the Super Bowl era, only behind Eric Dickerson. Mostert is going to probably be a big focal point for the Kansas City defense, I'd imagine.
They definitely would be stupid not to focus on him. And it's funny because he hasn't been a running back that has been highly talked about all season because he's been sharing reps with 2 other guys at the position, and both those other guys have been pretty good at succeeding in the games when they are needed to as well. And I think that also goes back to how great the 49ers offense is because their depth chart runs so deep when it comes to talent. And that game against the Packers, you don't beat the Packers as much as they did without him on their team. Jimmy Garoppolo threw 8 times, I believe, that entire game. And that's insane. Like, a lot of people are saying, well, that means that Jimmy Garoppolo is maybe not as good as he is. But that's also helping him save his arm for the Super Bowl when you clearly didn't need his arm to win against the Packers anyway.
That's almost Tom Brady's dream, to only throw 8 passes.
I know.
If he could do that, who knows? We could be talking about the Patriots in Miami. All right, so let's talk now about Richard Sherman. This could potentially be his last game. And the 49ers defense, of course, he is the mouthpiece for it, but it's obviously led by Nick Bosa. And Bosa has been kind of that extra boost that the 49ers defense has led. He's made some of the defenders around him better, like Fred Warner, DeForest Buckner, and D Ford. D Ford, the scapegoat for the Kansas City loss last year in the AFC Championship.
Right.
Bosa this season, 25 QB hits. That leads NFL rookies in 2019. This defense is something that's going to have to be reckoned with, and I think Mahomes is going to have his toughest test, oddly enough, in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think the Kansas City's offensive line is really going to have to step up in this game because obviously Patrick Mahomes is one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the league. He's fantastic at passing, but he's also pretty decent on the run as well. But if Nick Bosa continuously gets to him, and he definitely has the ability to, it's not going to look good for Kansas City. And their focus has to be protecting Patrick Mahomes from Nick Bosa this week.
The front four is going to have to be something that really is looked out for in that Super Bowl game coming up on Sunday in Miami, which we talked earlier. Jimmy Garoppolo going to start. The Patriots got a second-round draft pick in exchange for Jimmy Garoppolo. And let's look at some of the names that, through trades, the Patriots have acquired here. Christian Sam, a 6th-round pick in 2018. Duke Dawson, a 2nd-round pick in 2018. Damian Harris, 3rd-round pick in 2019. Joanne Williams, who is having his legal issues right now, a 2nd-round pick in 2019. And Jarrett Stidham for potentially the second coming of Garoppolo here.
No.
But how would Patriots fans feel if Jimmy Garoppolo wins the Super Bowl?
I think it's interesting because I feel like it's a little bit of a back and forth because I think there are some Patriots fans that are saying, well, good for him that he's going and getting success because obviously they like the guy because they were upset when he left. But there's got to be kind of a part of you that thinks, well, he could have been the future of the Patriots once Tom Brady leaves. But the problem is, like, that was 2 years ago that he got traded, and since then the Patriots have been in the Super Bowl twice. You can't really say that's a bad thing because how could you? And now now it's weird that Jimmy Garoppolo's in the Super Bowl the same year that we're now facing Tom Brady potentially finally leaving the Patriots. So it's kind of like the timing is very uncomfortable, and it's hard not to be a little bitter seeing Jimmy Garoppolo succeed while Tom Brady's about to wave goodbye to the rest of us.
So ironically enough, the Patriots still have one more draft pick from all these trades that Trader Bill has managed to complete here. They have Chicago's 4th-round pick coming up in April. This may get interesting as far as the legacy game is concerned because obviously for a few years it was, do you want Brady or Garoppolo? Eventually the Patriots chose Brady, which for the now, back then, that was a good call because you appeared in 2 more Super Bowls, you won 1 more. Garoppolo, he played in 2 games and got injured in the 2nd game. So to me, Garoppolo, if he wins a Super Bowl, this is going to put more of a wedge in Bill Belichick and Tom Brady as far as the popularity is concerned. And does Bill Belichick maybe have too little power? Because it seems like when we talked about the quarterback control between Brady and Garoppolo, maybe that was a call from Kraft coming down. You know what? Get rid of Jimmy. We want Tom Brady to stay on for a few more years. So maybe this is going to anger Patriots fans thinking about what could have been. Obviously, you won one more Super Bowl, but would you want one more Super Bowl in 2 appearances? Or if Garoppolo stayed, maybe 3 championships in 5 appearances? Who knows?
Yeah, I part of me really thinks that whole Garoppolo thing and the wedge it drove between Belichick and Brady was a bit overplayed. I'm sure there was some issues there because if I'm Tom Brady and someone's breathing down my neck and coming for my job, I'd be upset about it too. But they made it seem like it was this huge feud and that they don't speak to each other and it's a terrible team and I think it's just kind of ridiculous to go about it. Now, honestly, did Tom Brady maybe have some say in them trading away Jimmy Garoppolo?
A little bit.
But I don't think that Bill Belichick was just kind of a sitting duck in that situation either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that Bill Belichick is that type of person that would just like, oh, okay, Robert Kraft and Tom Brady are going to make this decision. I'm going to sit back and say nothing.
If Jimmy Garoppolo went to Super Bowl, Belichick might just sit back in his lazy boy and just eat the popcorn, smiling away, thinking about the fact that he could have had the next big guy. So we talked a lot about the 49ers. Let's talk about the AFC champions, that being the Kansas City Chiefs. They won the Lamar Hunt Trophy, named after their first owner for the first time in franchise history. They're coming into this game on a 10-game winning streak. Of course, a lot of the attention going to be on Patrick Mahomes, a.k.a. Patty Playoffs. Okay. But what does Patrick Mahomes bring to this game? Because he's going to get tested by that front four that we talked about earlier. He
definitely is, and I still think that that's going to be a big problem for him. But Pat Mahomes really represents kind of the new era of quarterback coming into this league. Lamar Jackson is obviously one of those guys too, but Pat Mahomes has been kind of doing it more successfully for longer at this point. And I think the fact that he's able to move is going to be a big help for him. And I think he might end up with more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns this week because I think that that's his way to go and that's how he's going to end up beating the 49ers defense.
To me, one of the big players to watch out for is Dee Ford. How does he get used in that defense? Because if you don't bring the pressure to Mahomes, perhaps you make him more of a pocket passer. And I mean, you have to take your pick if you're San Francisco. Do you want Mahomes to go ahead and run the ball down the field or throw the ball down the field? To me, personally, I think if you make him that pocket passer, maybe he doesn't achieve the success that he has as a quarterback that's scrambled out of the pockets. We've seen during these playoffs what Mahomes is capable of when he's forced to make moves on his feet.
Right.
He gets out of the pocket, goes down the sideline, and turns the game over.
I mean, yeah, if they keep him stationary in the pocket, I think that he'll be kind of overwhelmed, especially with the cornerbacks and the defensive backs that the 49ers have. I think that the key to the 49ers defense is just to keep him stable and not let him run all over them. But I'm not entirely sure they're going to be able to achieve that perfectly.
So this is going to be a classic game of a great offense against a great defense. The offense of Kansas City this year ranking 6th in the NFL, averaging just under 380 yards a game, about 6.22 yards per play. That's second in the NFL. The defense of the 49ers is second, allowing 281 yards of total offense and 4.66 yards per play. That's second. So something's got to give here. Overall, I think it comes down to which team has the better receivers.
Yeah, I think that, but I also think it also will have a lot to do with the defenses. And because Kansas City's defense just didn't perform as well as they have in the past this year. And I think their offense has carried them a lot of the way, and that's kind of the reason why they've achieved so much this season. So I think that if Jimmy Garoppolo and their running backs and their wide receivers are able to kind of figure out what Kansas City's defense is doing quickly, they'll have no problem. And I think the other way around, I don't think the 49ers defense will give Pat Mahomes as much opportunity to perform against them as Kansas City will for the 49ers offense.
All right, so let's talk now about Super Bowl prop bets. They're a great way to make a couple of quick bucks along the way and kind of helps you see what Americans will bet on. Yeah, amazing to see what you can bet on.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, so we took some of the classic ones. So we're going to start off here with the length of the national anthem, over under 2 minutes. And just so you know, it's Demi Lovato performing the national anthem. And I'm going to go with the over just because, I mean, the national anthem takes like a minute and a half, minute 45 if you add some pizzazz to it. In the Super Bowl, you can add a whole lot of pizzazz.
And I think Demi Lovato is also currently trying to get her career back on track, so I think she's going to want to make a show out of this. So I'm going to take the over as well.
All right, so 28-3. Those are numbers that us here in New England are familiar with. There's flags, shirts, stickers, koozies. How many times will the Patriots' 28-3 Super Bowl comeback from Super Bowl 51 be mentioned? The over/under is 0.5.
I'm going to say over, and this is why. I think this game will be either go to overtime or be very close to overtime, because I think that's how close the game is going to be. And I think the closer they get to the end of the game with a small lead for whoever, they're going to say, oh, we're going to go into overtime, we're going to go overtime, and then they're going to bring that up at least 3 or 4 times.
I'm going to go with the over, but for a completely different reason. This is the 100th year of the NFL.
Okay.
And when you talk about some of the greatest moments in Super Bowl history and the greatest moments in NFL history, that's 28-3 comeback and the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. That's going to be mentioned at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Plus, given who the announcer is, Joe Buck, he likes to kind of repeat things. But
he likes to play up storylines.
next up here, will a non-quarterback throw a pass? And this was one that we were kind of intrigued by because, I mean, this is a real question.
Yeah, because I think there have been so many games this season, especially in the playoffs, that kind of someone unexpected throws a pass. Like you see Derrick Henry did it for the Titans. I don't know. I feel like maybe Emmanuel Sanders would be able to do it. Usually they like to go to the wide receiver for that kind of thing. You see the Patriots go to Julian Edelman a lot because he used to be a quarterback. So I think that, I think they might have a non-quarterback throw a touchdown pass.
All right, so I'm going to go yes on this one, and I'm even going to give you the name.
Oh, okay.
So my choice for the player to throw a pass that's not a quarterback is Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
I mean, he outran Damian Williams going down the field on a 90-yard run, so he's proven that he can do pretty much anything on the football field.
That's fair.
So let's talk about the Gatorade color now. This is one that may get the most money brought into the sports book. I don't know how many colors Gatorade has, but what color?
A lot. I feel like it's going to be yellow or orange. Those are your kind of basic, run-of-the-mill, original Gatorade colors, and they don't usually get too fancy, so one of those two.
Gatorade or Powerade, the best one for both is blue, and the Dolphins' colors are blue. They're playing in the Dolphin Stadium, so I'm taking blue.
It's possible.
All right, so we talked about the Super Bowl. Time for the biggest question in the history of this program.
Lord.
The MVP of the Puppy Bowl.
Yeah.
Over/under of 17.5 weeks. Who's going to be the MVP of the game that has the winner taking the Lombardi Trophy?
I don't know. Like, I don't even know what the average age. I guess it's 17.5 weeks for the Puppy Bowl. I have no idea. I'm going to go under because I don't know.
I'm going over. I mean, if you're a puppy under 17.5 weeks, you can barely make it to midfield. You might get gassed.
Yeah.
All right, and finally here, we're getting a little more serious with the winner of the Super Bowl, Kansas City and San Francisco. Who you got?
I'm going to have to go with Jimmy G in San Francisco. However, I don't think Jimmy G will win the MVP. I don't think they're going to win because of him. I think they're going to win by either someone like George Kittle or even Nick Bosa, maybe. Who knows?
So here's a fun fact I was looking at when I was doing research for this game. San Francisco in games played in Miami for the Super Bowl, 2-0.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
playing the odds.
They're going to go to 3-0, and a big reason that is going to be because of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, well.
All right, so we're going to see how all of our picks work out. Probably going to be awful for one of us. That'll do it for the Super Bowl special. From Mary Evers, I'm John Luck. Thanks for watching.